Welcome back to Art with Jimmy. I'm Jimmy, aka Jimmy in Georgia. I went to Michael's and I picked up some of the Spectrum Noir Illustrator alcohol-based markers. Here we have a 6-piece set. It comes with the rich tones, and this is the first time I've tested out or tried or reviewed, whatever you want to call it, this particular style of alcohol-based ink markers. And these have the brush nib, which is always important to someone like myself. Have some express it blending card here, so I will really get in there and test these out as we go along through the video. One thing I do want to mention, I saw these a while ago, actually, probably almost a couple years ago. I mean, I've tried out a lot of different markers. Copic is my main marker. I have probably near 100 of those. I'd have to count. I have 24 sets of the Blick Studio markers, and as well as the Blick Illustrator markers. I like those. I have quite a few of the Winsor Newton Pro markers and brush markers, and then some of the Bria Reese markers, some Ohuhu markers, Sharpie, all sorts of different ones. So I like to test the different ones out, and these I really like. The only drawback I'd say of these, just from this initial testing of them, is the brush tips are a little off. They're a little, I wouldn't say frayed, but they're kind of curled up at the end. So they're not quite as accurate as you'd like them to be. Although I have heard that Spectrum Noir are in the process of possibly updating these with a finer point brush tip, which would be great. I really enjoyed just checking these out. I mean, this was kind of a random allotment of colors when it comes down to it. And so in some ways later on in the video, this is almost like a 6-color challenge. Even though I cheated a little bit, I did use a couple of the Copic markers to get a few extra colors in there. So as you see here, I've kind of gone through the 6, did some swatching, wrote out some things with the fine point nib. One thing I always like to do when I get new markers, I like to see if they'll blend with my Copics, as those are my favorite. And so here I was kind of trying to find something that would match fairly closely in tone. And I did. For 4 of the 6, I found something I thought was pretty close. The purple, I don't know. I probably would have worked. I don't know. It wasn't close enough. And so I'll go through and I test out these 4, and they blended very well with the inks from the Copics, and not all of the markers do. That's one of the things I always test. The Ohuhus really didn't. The Artist Loft markers, which I'm not a fan of from Michael's, definitely wouldn't. And so, probably just from this testing of these few markers, I would say they're probably 3rd or 4th on my scale of marker goodness. Probably right around that Winsor Newton area. I don't know the extent of this line of markers. Maybe I should do a little more research. Like, I don't know the number of colors available, and I don't believe these are refillable. One thing I really like about the Blick Studio markers, there's almost 100 of those. I believe there's 96 in the complete set, and those are now refillable as of a few months ago. So that's definitely a good alternative to the more expensive Copic markers. And here, I went in with some of the Blick Studio markers since I do like those, and those were able to blend as well. And so I wanted to sketch out something. As you can see, I don't know if you notice in the background, there's like a giant, I think it's like a gaming mat technically, but I kind of use it as a mouse pad now. And it is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You know, it's featured on the Nintendo Switch, which I'm a big fan of. I basically did sort of a Link-inspired sketch. I mean, it's not like exactly Link, especially with the colorations that I use. But, you know, it's an anime-ish character with a shield on his back. And so just trying to do the best I could with the colors I have. And as I go through this, did this pretty quickly. I think this is sped up by 3 speed, I think it is. And so it took around 14 minutes, probably start to finish. So this wasn't a long, you know, drawn out thing. This was, you know, really like I would call a quick sketch of this Linkish character. But I really like the way the ink goes onto this. So earlier, just testing, I was using the Express-It blending cards. But when I went to sketch this, and I don't think I actually showed this in the video, I switched over to my Strathmore marker paper. It's just a little payout of 24 sheets, and it's 6 inches by 8 inches as far as scale goes. But I really liked how the markers went down on the paper. The ink is like super juicy in there. It goes down pretty smooth. And I go back over some of the areas again. I mean, that's one of the best things about this style of marker, is the opportunity not only to blend, but also to layer and to get some more depth, even with just the one color. And I go back and try to do a little bit of that as we move forward through the sketch. Like, one thing I'll mention too, since this was at Michael's almost always has a 40% off coupon. Sometimes they have 50, even 60% off. So this marker set at Michael's is normally $26. I paid basically $13 plus tax for it. So that's definitely an option, and that's definitely, fairly inexpensive at that point. A couple dollars a marker, basically. A little more than that, but in the realm of that, which is less than half the price of a Copic marker, as those, even on sale, even with a discount, most places retail price is going to be $8 in the US, but if you have a coupon like at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, it'll drop it down to around that $5 range, which is still kind of expensive, for a lot of people. So not everyone can afford those. Definitely can't. I'm always trying to find something a little more cost effective that I can work with those markers that I really enjoy. And so here I'm using a few fine liners. I actually do have some Spectrum Noir fine liners, but I didn't pull those out of my art supplies. I've been using these Zig fine liners. They're called Zig Cartoonist. I guess it's Manga Ka. I don't know. But there's 3 of them. There's an 01, an 05, and an 08 that I use in this little quick sketch. I don't know. Those were recommended to me by artist friend Kansas Geek Man. You may know him on Instagram. He's here on YouTube as well, so check him out. He does some really awesome stuff. He does a lot of sketch cards for tops and other things, but he has shared a lot of advice and tips over the years, and I always appreciate that when people do that. So these work really well. I haven't had much trouble with them smudging. That's something I run into even with fairly expensive fine liners, and these seem to work pretty well. And again, I like the markers just for testing them out here, just for around 30 minutes probably spending with the markers. I thought they were pretty good, and I definitely would recommend them for the price. So anyway, here's my finished little sketch of a Linkish person. We'll see you next time. So you can follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Jimmy and Georgia to see more of my artwork. You can also subscribe to the channel by clicking right up here. Here's one of my recent videos that you might enjoy. Thank you so much for checking out my channel. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.